Hey, hey, hey. Oh my goodness. Welcome, everyone. I am Saudi Davis, the director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, and I'm literally giggling inside because we have made it to our 8th night during our Empower, Educate, Create 9 days of giving Stream-a-Thon. It is with absolute total joy that through the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, we are able to identify new and emerging creative entrepreneurs and provide resources, skills, knowledge, and the relationship for business success through the creative sector. So as you are developing your company, or maybe you've been developing and have built your company for a while, but you just need that extra step to take you to the next level, we're here for you. So tonight we focus on culinary, but before we get started, there are a couple of things for you to note. This week, and in fact, tomorrow, Bill Patterson's work and lunch is Mind Your Business, how Santa monetizes his intellectual property. It's a case study. So join him tomorrow at 12 p.m., which will be a really great time for you to learn more about what you can do in terms of your intellectual property and find out how Santa monetizes. So that'll be a lot of fun tomorrow at 12 p.m. CT. And then on Saturday, we have our boot camp with our partner, Free Spirit Media, how to build a profitable online brand in 2021. The world keeps changing, and we're really excited to be able to partner with organizations like Free Spirit Media in their Pathways program to be able to provide this very valuable information to our creative sector. And tonight we have she's an innovator. She's created an incredible company called GoLogic. Her name is Patrice Darby, and she's got a quick note to share with you for this holiday season. Patrice, tell us about GoLogic.
Hi, everyone. So I'm the founder and CEO at GoLogic, and we create turnkey digital solutions for small businesses, especially restaurants and retailers. So if you're selling food or you're selling products, this holiday season, we launched an initiative called Operation. We launched an initiative this holiday season called Operation Same Day Santa. So we want to help restaurants and anyone that's selling products get your food and your products to your customers safe. Maybe your restaurant's closed down. This is a way that you can actually launch your delivery service, automate the entire process, and make it streamlined so that your employees can perform seamlessly. So again, our company is GoLogic, and you can find us at www.gologicsolutions.com. Again, we are happy to say that we're standing with anyone that is a restaurant owner. Maybe your restaurant has been closed. Now is the time. We're giving you the platform free for 2 months to operate this holiday season.
And that's the part I wanted everybody to know. You're giving it to restaurateurs free?
Yes.
2 months, right? So this
Absolutely.
is really great. Thank you so much for making that contribution. I mean, we're doing all we can to really keep our culinary community engaged and as much as possible. So thank you, Patrice, for jumping in. And anybody, like, we put your ticker up there, people will know how to find you. So be sure to go to GoLogic Solutions and support her business, and she'll support yours. So with all that being said, tonight is about culinary. With the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, we focus on 9 industries within the creative sector. And I would say arguably that the creative sector of the culinary, arts, restaurants, food business has been hit severely with the COVID restrictions. And so I share this with a heavy heart, but at the same time, we want to try to find some solutions. So we're going to bring on Brianne Wells of the Daniel Initiative to sort of level set this conversation for this evening. I'm really excited to have you. Thank you so much, Brianne. Brianne, tell people a little bit about you and how and why you're able to level set this conversation with us, please.
Sure. So always a pleasure to have this conversation with the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. I am Brianne Wells, the president and founder of the Daniel Initiative. We are a government relations, a strategic communications firm. So that means we develop legislative strategies to include advocacy and lobbying as well as social impact strategies to help connect the dots from what is necessary and the cries on the streets to those, as Reverend Sharpton would say, in the suites, to make sure that we're getting those receipts and the coverage that we need. I also recently, the Daniel Initiative launched what is called the Economic Equity Roundtable, because we acknowledge and understand that a vast majority of creatives, of entrepreneurs, of small businesses were left out, overlooked when it comes to PPP, so Paycheck Protection Program funding, to help make sure that people are staying on these payrolls. We know that a vast majority of small businesses were overlooked. And I would be remiss if I didn't amplify the fact that it was even more detrimental on small businesses and culinary specialties of color, to include here in Washington, D.C., Ben's Chili Bowl. They had to close down one of their locations in Virginia because they did not receive adequate enough funding in retail during this pandemic to be able to stay afloat. So we created the Economic Equity Roundtable to ensure that people had that access to Congress, in particular, the federal government, as they're beginning to navigate what these stimulus packages look like and ways to make sure that every voice is considered at the table.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So before we move on to our first guest, what would you say the status is right now with where Congress is right now?
So it's a mixed bag. It has been a tumultuous year, not just with the pandemic, but it has been a tumultuous year politically, right? And we're in the middle of a transition. And so that means that, businesses have to keep their eye on the ball, not just on the current status of this current administration, to include the stimulus bills. There's a number of stimulus packages at a wide variety of numbers. And so, Congress is wrestling with which package that they are going to settle upon and that they'll send to the White House. And of course, the beaming question is, what will the White House's response be in getting out this funding to these small businesses that need it? But then it's also keeping an eye on the incoming administration and really putting the pressure, like we have done at the Economic Equity Roundtable, in knowing that this pandemic and the vaccines will carry us well into probably May, June timeframe of 2021. That means that there will need to be consistently more funding. So we've outlined priorities for this incoming Biden administration, right, to the Small Business Administration, to the Department of Commerce, to some of these other must-need executive agencies, to ensure that as they're thinking about these first 100-day priorities, as well as, what Congress can do, that they are keeping an eye on the ball for those of us that are small businesses, creatives, entrepreneurs, to make sure our needs are met.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and giving us just a perspective of where we are, with regards to where Congress is, and that there are still other stimulus packs out there. I really appreciate you being a Center for Creative Entrepreneurship advisor. Thank you, Brian, to being an advisor to us and taking this moment out of your very busy schedule to just level set the conversation, because next up, we are bringing on Mr. Kevin Boehm. So what that means is I'm excited that we have an incredible restaurateur who is with us. Boka Group has won multiple, James Beard Awards. So let's take a look at Kevin Boehm.
After opening 30 restaurants over the last 27 years, James Beard winning restaurateur Kevin Boehm has become one of the nation's foremost visionaries in the field of hospitality. Kevin, along with his partner, Rob Katz, have built a restaurant group based on great chefs, inspired design, and enlightened hospitality. Boehm got his education opening and selling 4 restaurants, all before the age of 30. In 2002, Boehm would partner with Rob Katz, and the two would open 30 places together in less than 18 years. The group's many accolades and accomplishments include 16 James Beard finalist nominations, 2 Food and Wine's Best New Chefs, 9 consecutive Michelin stars for Boka, 6 Boka Group restaurants in Chicago Tribune's top 50 list, and a James Beard win and Iron Chef designation for the Stephanie Izzard. Boehm, along with Katz, won Restaurateurs of the Year in Time Out Chicago in 2010, Chicago Tribune in 2011, the Illinois Restaurant Association in 2017, and were Eatery National's Empire Builders of the Year in 2012. In 2019, they won Outstanding Restaurateur in America at the James Beard Awards. In addition to Boka Group, Boehm co-founded Beyond in 2020, a private wellness club in the River North neighborhood of Chicago.
Hey, everybody.
You know, it's like, you can't, I mean, just to read it all, I got, a couple of restaurants, Little Goat, right? Mama Taro, one of my favorite sushi places. Oh, just GT Prime Steakhouse. We could go, the list just goes on, like make people really understand.
You're very kind. That bio sounds better than my actual life has been the last 9 months, though, just to be clear.
Yeah, Kevin, I appreciate you taking time to come on and talk with us. For those of you who don't follow Mr. Boehm on social media, you have absolutely become definitely an advocate for the industry. Talk to us a little bit about you and what's been going on, because as I mentioned, and I put it in our advertisements, that this in fact is the sector that has been the most hit. I think there was a statistic like 60% of the restaurants were struggling before the pandemic. 40% have not survived thus far. So, I come into this conversation with you feeling that.
Yeah, well, listen, there's 110,000 restaurants have closed in the last 9 months. So if you go all the way back to March when we were forced to shut down, I took a phone call. There was about 9 or 10 of us on the phone call, myself, Tom Colicchio, Andrew Chasen from CAA, Will Gadara, Kwame Anwachi, Naomi Pomeroy, and we were just talking about, what are we going to do? Do we have enough voice in Washington? Because we didn't know how long we were going to be shut down. And we formed the Independent Restaurant Coalition to just give us more of a voice in Washington. And we basically wrote a bill. We got together with Representative Blumenauer and wrote the Restaurants Act. And it passed the House of Representatives. A bunch of people who were not lobbyists became amateur lobbyists. And I spent a lot of my time these last several months talking to senators, talking to representatives, talking about policy, because when you look at PPP, it was not created for restaurants, and restaurants are a very specific business. To echo what Breon said, 130 Black-owned restaurants received PPP. That's it in America. 8% of PPP money went to restaurants when 1 of 4 displaced workers were from the restaurant community. So we jumped in there kind of early while they were building the ship of PPP. We're able to shape it a little bit, but ultimately what we thought was needed was a specific bill. We got over 200 co-sponsors in the House. We have 50 right now in the Senate, including 8 Republicans. But we're still kind of caught as a bystander to this kind of political cage match that's going on. And here we sit on Tuesday of Hell Week, which is this last week before session ends for the year, and we still don't have text on a stimulus bill. And meanwhile, people are really struggling. I talk to 10 operators a day that are in tears, that don't know what they're going to do, that had their whole life wrapped up in restaurants, and they're struggling.
Yeah, it's what I can do is for sure commend you and the coalition that you brought together to create the bill, because what that really demonstrates, I think, for everyone, is that we as people really do have to take part in how we are served. And I think that we've become, I don't want to, rarely do we talk politics, but just the reality of whatever industry, we've become almost entitled, or we expect that it's going to happen, not to speak for restaurants, but specifically, nobody expected for the theaters to close, right? Or movie theaters to close, or dance, everything shut down. And we're just so used to these public spaces being there for us. So I think if anything, this silver lining might be a little bit of the wake up, right? Like, we got to make sure that we're advocating for ourselves and our businesses and our industries. And, you know, I really have seen a lot of what you've done on social media, and I wanted to shine a light, not just on the success, obviously, of your businesses. Oh my God, the food is so good. You know, I mean, and it's not only that, Kevin, the food is so good. Talk to us a little bit about how the James Beard Awards ended up in Chicago, because, you know, there's something to be said about the industry that is here now. And I just want to make that note, if you don't mind sharing, because it's huge.
Of course. Chicago is very important in the restaurant community in this country and in the world. And I think there are a few things that we do especially well. I love Midwesterners. You know, I was born here. I grew up here, but there's something about them that gives great hospitality. And listen, there are a lot of cities that have great food. There's a lot of cities who have great design, but I think our hospitality is so genuine and so real, and it's so authentic. You know, Midwesterners have a really good bullshit detector.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, you see it inside the restaurant. So the James Beard, you know, New York has won the most James Beard Awards ever. Chicago's won the second most. So when it left New York after being at Lincoln Center for 25 years, you know, I think we were the fairly obvious choice. There were several people, including, you know, Alpana Singh and Ram and, you know, Sam Toy and Mary Kay at the Illinois Restaurant Association, that lobbied very hard to get the James Beard Awards here. And, you know, that says a lot about our city, that now we're the home of the James Beard Awards. And God, I was really hoping this last May that, you know, that COVID was going to be over by then and we were all going to be able to get back together again. Let me tell you what, when the restaurant community does get back together, it's going to be quite a party at some point.
Yeah. Not only is it going to be quite a party, I mean, you guys did install an air filtration type of system into your restaurant, and we're going to go into beyond. Talk to us a little bit about that, because here's the thing, you know, speaking of going into the pandemic, everybody was trying to solve for solutions, knowing it was going to get cold, right? And that we wouldn't be able to be inside, or if we were, how could we do it in a healthy way? So is it H2O that transfers to what?
Yeah, so in Beyond that we just built at 600 West Chicago, it's a system that takes H2O naturally out of the air, grabs an extra molecule of oxygen to make H2O2, and actually pushes out dry hydrogen peroxide. And this is what's in a lot of the hospital units right now. And so in addition to that, HEPA filters in every single room. We have 12 different air handler units within the space. And it's also a space with big, tall ceilings and a lot of circulation space. So it is hospital level quality air that even when COVID's over, it's going to be really great because that dry hydrogen peroxide kills all the viruses in the air.
Brilliant. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, there are these wins. They're small, but they're small in the spectrum of what we're dealing with right now with COVID, but they're huge in terms of sustainability going forward. Because if you're killing bacteria in the air and there's food and there's this, there's that, it's just going to be a healthier space. Speaking of health and wellness, so the hospitality and the wellness of BN looks, I just want to live there. I mean, what's going on?
I do live there right now. This is one of the few moments I've not been there for the last 50 days. You know what? Three years ago, I was leaving a private club, and I just was like thinking in my head as I was driving home, you know, what would my private club be like? And I started to think, you know, well, listen, it would have a medical facility, and my primary doctor would be in there, and it'd have a yoga studio and a Pilates studio, and it would have a music room with 2,000 records in it that you could go into. And it would have a spa, and Julius Few, the great plastic surgeon, could do beauty, and it would have a social space with health food, and it would have a nap room inside it that you could go into, and it would have a director of Eastern medicine and a full-time physician on staff and a naturopath. Oh, this is all stuff we did. 26,000 square feet, the most comprehensive wellness private club that exists on planet Earth.
Okay, so with that, and I'm watching my clock because I'm cautious of your time. You know, Donna Karen launched probably about 15 years ago an Eastern/Western medical practice in New York, and it was quite interesting for the time, because there are some elements of Eastern medicine that really offset what Western medicine may not pick up, or just having that nice balance. So I'm very familiar, and it's such a holistic way to offer social clubbing, right?
It does. And, you know, you made a really good point there. Is like doctors don't usually talk to each other. There's not like this ecosystem for people. And you look at a show like The Biggest Loser or something like that, where people go on, and why do they succeed? Because they've got a nutritionist, and they've got a psychiatrist, and they've got a trainer, and they've got all these people that are supporting them. Well, that's what we can do here, but also everybody speaks to each other. So if your internist, your Western medicine person, is speaking to the person who's also giving you acupuncture, who's speaking to your nutritionist, that's when you can really solve problems with people. And there's some people in there that have issues that we're already solving.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm really excited. So tell us, so what's happening with it in this time? How are people able to go? Where are we with it?
Yeah. So because we are medical and we are essential, the medical part of it is completely open.
Great.
People can work out one-on-one. They can work out in private group classes. They can take food home to go. They can be in the co-working space just working. They can get massages because they can go through a doctor's scan first. They can do the beauty stuff because as long as they go through a screening with medical.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of stuff that we can do. And so we already have over 400 members, which we were always going to only take 400 members the first 60 days that we were open, which we're sold out for. And then starting at the beginning of the year, hopefully some of the restrictions will let up and we'll be able to start to take more people.
Okay. So is it referral member? I mean, how does one?
You just apply. If you go to livebeyond.com, livebian.com, you can go on there and apply. And as soon as we take an application, we'll invite you over to take you through a tour of the space. And we'll sit down and have a conversation with you. And really, the only rule to be a member of Beyond is that you're a good human being.
I mean, that's awesome.
Don't be a jerk.
You can't be a jerk. That causes stress. I'm just saying, you know, I'm already like, after these, we're going into our 9th night tomorrow and it's on film. And I'm just like, I know that I need a massage, but I'm afraid to go anywhere to get one.
You come take a tour with me at Beyond. You let me know when you want to come by.
Oh, thank you so much. Listen, it is absolutely a pleasure to have you on for a moment in time. You have such a beautiful wife and your children are gracious and beautiful, and we salute the work that you've been doing on behalf of all of the restaurateurs and the culinary industry, Kevin. It's really a pleasure. Let's put up Beyond's ticker just so people can really know how to get there again. Thank you, and we wish you a wonderful holiday, right?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And I just want to close by saying there are so many workers out there right now that are in restaurants that are either furloughed, have been laid off. And if anybody wants an actionable item, you call your senator, call your representatives. Let's push this thing over the line.
Absolutely. And that we'll make sure we do. Thank you so much. I put everything on mute, but I definitely was timing myself because I want to keep my agreement. Thank you so much to Kevin Boehm and the Boka Group. Right now, we're definitely going to keep this industry moving with Mott Smith.
Mott Smith is the co-owner and chief executive of Amp Kitchens and principal of Civic Enterprise. He is a founding board member of the Council of Infill Builders and teaches in the Master of Real Estate Development program and the USC Price School of Public Policy. He also serves on the City of Los Angeles Small Business Commission, as well as the boards of affordable housing developer Restore Neighborhoods LA and LA Mas. Earlier, he was acting director of planning for the LA Unified School District during its multi-billion-dollar school construction program, following his service as founding executive director of New Schools, Better Neighborhoods. He has also worked as editor business manager of the Planning Report. Mott is past president of the West Side Urban Forum and the former bassist of LA rock band All Day Sucker. He received a Master of Real Estate Development from USC and a BA in linguistics from.
Hi there, Mott. What's going on?
Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you for hanging out with us and being our co-host for the rest of tonight's program.
Excited to be here.
So, you've done a lot. We're definitely going to show a video just to put some perspective on some of the work that you've done. Again, a great CCE advisor. So thank you so much for being that for us. Let's take a look. Talk to us before we take a look at the video. Talk to us a little bit about Amped Kitchen.
Yeah, thank you. So my business partner, Brian Albert, and I are real estate developers, and our mission has always been to use our expertise as a way of empowering people to kind of enter the formal economy as best they can. So if you're somebody who is a renter and you want to get into home ownership, we were early advocates for lowering the cost of single family homes in places like LA and Chicago and other cities. When the last recession hit back in 2008, so many people were out of work. So many people left their professions. And there was an explosion of interest in food. And Brian and I knew a lot of people who were expanding food businesses or trying to get into new product areas. And they were running up against roadblocks all over the place. They could start their businesses in incubators, but as soon as they got their first life-changing order from a place like Whole Foods, they were looking at a 1 to 2 year process of dealing with contract manufacturers, crazy facility build outs, things like this, before they could even fulfill that first order. And so we set out to create a place, which at the time was called LA Prep. So I think in the video you're about to see, you're going to hear people talking about LA Prep. That's what Amped Kitchens used to be called. We wanted to build a place where small food makers could come and, without having a trust fund, start their businesses, grow their businesses, and take advantage of all kinds of unexpected opportunities for success, and being part of a great community as well. So Amped Kitchens has been around since 2015 in Los Angeles. We just opened up our Chicago facility on the northwest side, about 10 minutes from Logan Square in an area called Belmont-Cragen. And we're thrilled to be in Chicago. Chicago, like Kevin was saying, is one of the great food cities in the world, and we can feel the excitement and feel the creativity. And we've got 64 kitchens there, waiting for Chicago's food community to come on in and rock them. So I'd love to share our video with you guys.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Not much to look at. It's about as dull a building as you can imagine, but inside it's amazing. Sure enough, there were 54 kitchens. People were baking, simmering, churning, and packaging all sorts of unique boutique foods.
We have non-GMO, raw, gluten-free snacks such as blonde macaroons and date cookies.
We make raw, organic, cold-pressed juice here at LA Prep.
We deliver super nutritious meals right to your door in the SoCal area. We use ingredients like homemade bone broth and cultured veggies.
We have monthly baking experiences for you and your family to bake at home. Everything you need is right here in the kit.
Hi, I'm Mo, the creator of Spice. Oh man, this is a little too hard for me.
So who made this place happen?
So 54 kitchens.
54 kitchens.
These guys did. Mott Smith and Brian Albert. They realized there are tons of people out there making their own jam or pasta or salsa in their home kitchens. But to break out of the small time, you would need to build a very expensive, professional, health department certified kitchen.
We said there's got to be a better way.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
The empanada shop.
Yes, come on in.
Ruben used to work for the Walt Disney Company, but his passion was cooking old family recipes from Mexico.
You don't want to overwhelm the empanada with a lot of spices. You kind of want to make sure that it's got a nice blend with the dough and the cheese. And the cheese carries a lot of salt. You want to minimize that. So it's a balanced strategy.
He also wanted to go organic, which requires even more certifications.
Certified organic kitchen means that it's self-contained.
So nobody can make non-organic food here.
Right. If you want to be gluten-free, or if you want to be kosher, or a lot of other things that are important to a lot of our food businesses, the only way you can do it is by having your own space.
And how much would it cost if he had to build his own kitchen? Hundreds of thousands of dollars and easily a year of wading through complicated bureaucracy.
You really had to be a masochist to get into the food business.
The alternative? Lease a ready-to-go kitchen.
LA Prep is a solution for people who don't have a year and don't have $500,000 in the bank to get started selling their bread or their
Jam
pasta
or their ice
cupcakes
cream.
or exactly.
Eggs, cheese, cilantro.
And and the beans. And then we
That's awesome. It's like, this is so cool because as individuals may not have the ability or the financial capability to really invest in a larger framework of a restaurant, this is a really great opportunity for them to build their brand, if you will.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, what we've found is that, just like Kevin was saying, the restaurant industry, the food service industry has been absolutely devastated by the pandemic. But still, everybody still needs to eat. And all of the creativity that was going into restaurants and bars and other forms of food service is still there. And so people are coming to places like Amped Kitchens and growing their businesses, developing new business lines, doing meal delivery, doing consumer packaged goods, doing all kinds of things. And again, we're brand new in Chicago, and we're just thrilled to be there.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, I appreciate you joining me on this culinary journey this evening. Right now, we're going to bring in Oliver Gottfried from Oxfam America.
So, Oliver, and I hope you don't mind if I read Oliver's bio. Oliver Gottfried served as the senior campaign strategist at Oxfam America. He oversees Oxfam's campaigning on food issues, working to build a better food system, one that produces enough for a growing population and empowers poor people to earn a living and feed their families. He previously led Oxfam's campaign to improve working conditions and wages for America's 250,000 poultry processing workers. Prior to coming to Oxfam America, he spent 14 years leading campaigning and advocacy work for political campaigns and labor unions across the United States. He received his undergraduate degree from Haverford College.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Oliver, how's it going? How are you doing?
Good. Obviously, a busy time, just like with Mott and others. The pandemic has really had a profound impact on people living in poverty. So it's really impacted an organization like Oxfam that serves to try to lift up the voices of those who are living in poverty and try to seek solutions that help them improve their lives. And food being a very central issue to that, which is I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it, because one of the things that disturbs me to the core are the amount of lines that people are in food lines right now.
Yeah, I mean, the amazing thing, one of the things we talk about at Oxfam is that the problem in the world is not that there isn't enough food to feed everyone in the world. There actually is. We produce as a planet more than enough food to feed all of the people in the world. The problem is that there are millions and millions of people in the world who go to bed hungry every night. And that really comes down to an issue of power. Who has access to power and who doesn't? And often it is the people who, without power, who are the ones who are left suffering hardship, and especially in a pandemic like we're experiencing now.
Wow.
Yeah, and Oliver, I know that Oxfam has a general mission of helping empower people who are marginalized. Could you talk more about what you guys are doing specifically in the food world? I know you guys have this new campaign that you've been spearheading, focusing on food. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So there are a large number of people who live in poverty all around the world who are involved in food production in one way or another. Despite the fact that they grow, produce, pack, and ship the food that we eat and find in our supermarkets and restaurants, they often don't have enough food to feed themselves and their families. So, we've obviously talked a lot about restaurant workers as part of the program tonight. One of the other areas of the food system that has been extremely impacted by the pandemic is people who are involved in other parts of food production. So think about the people who are picking your vegetables in the fields in California, for example, the people who work in processing plants who are chopping up the chicken that becomes the chicken nuggets that we buy for kids in the grocery store. Those people, they were not allowed to not go to work because of the pandemic. There was a need to continue to produce that food. So they were, adversely impacted by the pandemic. And whereas restaurants have to be responsive to customers, and so they are taking steps, what we heard from Kevin, the steps that they take to protect both their customers and their employees. People who own farms, who own processing plants don't have to do that. They don't have customers in front of them to answer to. And so you often had workers going to work sick because they don't have paid sick leave. They were barely earning enough to feed themselves and their families, and really endangering themselves to make sure that we had food on the table.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm sorry, Sadia.
No, I'm allowing that to really rest, right? When I said, wow, I think it's really important that people understand that's a whole segment that nobody's really addressing.
Exactly.
Individuals who are packaging the food, who are cutting the chicken, who are preparing the foods for our fast food industries or various areas of the back end. We'll bring Brianna up in a bit, but I really want to understand, how is that piece being missed? Is it a part of media not covering it? Are there no advocates for those individuals? I understand what Oxfam America does, but how can we help you?
Yep. So you pinpointed it exactly. It's not very much in front of our face. Obviously, when you go to a restaurant or grocery store, you're often interacting with the people who work there face to face. But the people who pick our food, the people who process it, pack it, ship it, are invisible to us. And especially in the United States, many of these people are from communities of color. They're from vulnerable populations, women, people of color, immigrants. They don't have the kind of advocates that other people do. And so while there are a number of organizations all around the country who are working to try to lift up their voices and call attention to this, but they're all relatively small organizations without the big kind of megaphones that we can often have. So one of the things that Oxfam does is to try to shine a spotlight on that as much as we can. We want, we've been advocating in Congress for more stimulus and more economic relief for people who've been impacted by the pandemic, as both Brianna and Kevin were talking about, and we're advocating for exactly that as well, to also include people who are involved in food production.
Mott.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, one of the heroes in the food world is Chef Jose Andres from the kitchen, and he had a great op-ed in the New York Times today calling for a federal level secretary of food. Yep. And there was a quote in the article from a farm worker in California who picks blueberries and talks about how the people who are feeding the rest of us who are privileged enough to be able to afford it and have access to it are themselves not getting food. And it sounds like there's a double whammy, that on the one hand, people in that community are getting hit by COVID. If they're working, they're getting hit by unemployment if they're not working, and they're getting hit by all the food access problems that are getting multiplied by this.
Yep.
So what can we do? For those of us who care about this and want to make a difference, what can we do other than get awed by the depth of the problem?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I would echo what others have said about contacting your member of Congress and trying to make these sorts of stories visible for them. But the other thing that Oxfam has done is what we call our Eat for Good initiative. So if you go to oxfamamerica.org/eatforgood, you'll find what we have developed, which is 5 very simple ways that you can be a more responsible consumer when it comes to how you shop, cook, and eat your food. So it's something as simple as shopping local, right? If you shop at a local grocery store, you frequent a local restaurant, you are putting money back into your economy rather than paying for food that was shipped from all the way across the country. You know, and you're really being able to both support your local community and to raise up the experiences of people who live there. So that's just one example. There's several others, but there's really simple things that you can do to try to have an impact in a more positive way for people who are suffering now, especially during the pandemic.
Let me ask you, and forgive me because I don't remember the name of a particular organization that I'm thinking about, but where there's food left off, meaning like there are organizations that sell food that's, you know, fruit that's not quite round, that doesn't go into the market. Like, talk to us a little bit about, are there organizations that are pushing out food that's left over somehow, or?
Yep, food spoilage is and sort of leftover food waste is an enormous problem. Again, that's one of the biggest reasons why we produce more food, but there are people still going hungry, is food waste and food spoilage. So absolutely, there are organizations that will accept donations and help turn them around and put them to good work. And you know, we certainly encourage people even in their own homes. You can do that. Think about how to cook, you know, one night and make it last for 3 nights. Think about ways to reuse food scraps. You know, all of the roots of your, you know, the leaves of the vegetables that you cut off, the other things that you might cut off, those are great for making stock, for example. So great ways to sort of reuse what you have and waste less.
Great. Thank you so much for saying that, because, you know, one of the things we can do too is, you know, repurpose some of the food. I just found out, I don't know, a couple of years ago, boiling the bones, right, of the chicken creates a great chicken stock, which is great for your joints and your knees. But another way to, you know, kind of stretch that food a bit more. I really appreciate, Oliver, you sharing this information. It's very impactful, and it's something that, you know, these are tips that you can give us to be able to go forward. Before we get into our live performance, I just wanted to invite Brian back on so that if you guys had any questions for each other, we could take a moment to do that. Not everybody all at once.
I think I'll take this opportunity, though, to, you know, really underscore one thing that Oliver said, that this is a fight for power. Which is why the name of the game is equity, right? I know that equality is a buzzword that we tend to use, but it's about equity, which means making sure that we all have equal access to that power. And I say that, you know, mindful of the fact that Oxfam does a lot of work in different spaces, not just in the food justice space, but we know that intersectionality means that there are these things that are, you know, compounded. So for instance, when we talk about even students showing up in classes and their ability to focus and pay attention, sometimes it's not just bad behavior that comes out of nowhere, right? It's sometimes it's the fact that they're hungry, that Jimmy needed food, right? And we have these food deserts that arrive in these spaces. I think Oliver made an excellent point in the fact that it's not that we have a lack of food, but where are we distributing that food? How are we making sure even that these mom and pop shops are empowered to continue to service their communities, as they have been the stable part of the economy? So I just wanted to underscore the importance of equity in this fight, and the fact that, you know, people like Oliver, myself, and Kevin are doing this hard work. But I think we need to continue to have a lens towards this next administration, because these bills that we're fighting for, if they're not addressed in this Congress, will die and reset. So that means there's an opportunity to re-strategize, to rethink, to broaden the coalitions, and to come together in a unified voice.
Yeah. And if I could echo something that Brian said earlier, which is, you know, if you're not someone who sort of pays attention to politics a lot, you could be sitting there thinking, why isn't Congress doing more, right? Every day I hear about more people getting sick, more people dying, more small businesses like restaurants closing, more people being laid off. Why aren't they doing anything? And the reason is because they aren't feeling the pressure to do it. So it's incumbent upon all of us to reach out to our members of Congress to not to ask, but to demand that they do something. And Brian's point is exactly right, which is that in January we get a new Congress coming in. Even if Congress does something this week or next week, it is going to be woefully inadequate to the scale of the problem. And so we're going to have to keep pushing them to do even more next year because the problem is only going to get worse. So it's really incumbent upon all of us to take that action, and it's a really simple and quick action for everybody to do.
Yeah, and I'd love to add also that in addition to the advocacy that we can do at the federal level, there's obviously lots of work to be done at the state level and the local level too.
Yep.
One of the things that's been a huge barrier for particularly small food businesses has been the regulatory environment, which is often only accessible to those who can afford, even high-priced local lobbyists, and who can deal with the complexities of all of the local permitting and zoning and street requirements. I think the pandemic has shined a light on how our local governments can streamline approvals for people, say, who want to do outdoor dining or who want to expand their restaurants into parking lots or sidewalks or whatever it is, to improve their businesses. And I think that some of the streamlining, hopefully, will stay in place even after the pandemic and increase the accessibility to the formal economy for a lot of people who are shut out of it right now.
Yeah, I think this has been really impactful as far as definitely describing what's going on in the culinary industry. I will ask at this time for everybody to give one key tip as far as the development of your business or what one can do. We know we can definitely reach out to Congress. We can eat local. But for the entrepreneur in this moment, obviously, Mott, I'll touch you first or tag you first, and then we'll go on to the next person.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cliche to say this, but it's times like this when the greatest creativity comes out. Because now, people who might realize that the job that they're in, if they're lucky enough to have a job, isn't as satisfying as they'd like it to be, and if people are out of work, it forces you to really be resourceful. And I can tell you, our experience in the last recession was that some of the most incredible, creative, resourceful new business ideas in the food world were born back then. And already, we can see what's happening by looking at our intake activities. People express interest in kitchens, and in the past 2 months, there's been a sharp increase in interest in the sort of space that we offer, which tells me that people are already doing this. People are already thinking, how am I going to start a new business? How am I going to turn some idea that I have into something great? And my advice is just do it and don't wait.
Yeah, well, that's really key. And I'm going to put up a comment here. Oliver, you're next.
Yeah. So this is sort of a corollary to shopping local, which is, anyone, whether you are, an entrepreneur or just a regular consumer, you have incredible power with the decisions that you make and where you decide to spend your money. So shopping local is an example of that. But, frequent businesses that are aligned with your values and tell them that, right? Use your voice and your dollars to lift up the people that you agree with and perhaps ignore those that you don't. Because that is the way that we can call more attention and help those businesses be more successful.
Great. Yeah, it's really important. We did have one question as far as, where can we shop locally? One of the things we can do is we can definitely make sure that we're able to post on our site or, on our social media. We'll do some research and make sure that we're able to send that information out. Brian?
Yeah, I would just say, in addition to what both Mott and Oliver said, I'm gonna make the very direct plug. Join our Economic Equity Roundtable. We established it simply as a response to the fact that COVID-19 not only exposed the inequities that have always existed and exacerbated them, but also exposed the need for us to engage on a more consistent and unified basis. And so, it's for creatives, it's for entrepreneurs, small business owners, thought leaders, all of the above, and we collaborate, strategize, and mobilize, right, in that order. And so we've even put together a number of letters outlining first 100-day priorities for the Small Business Administration and the Department of Commerce and the Treasury Department as they modernize, to make sure that they include us, to include the culinary industry, and that they're moving forward, not moving forward without us.
Nice. I appreciate that. And I, absolutely as a member of that working group. Thank you, Brian. So you guys, thank you so much. Please feel free to hang back. We have an extraordinary opportunity right now to shine a light on one of our drummers for tonight, who happens to have, who's also a CCE Global Advisor, Mr. Jimmy Chamberlain. Grammy Award-winning musician, writer, producer, and educator, founding member of the Smashing Pumpkins, former CEO of Live One Inc., led the company to 300% year-on-year event growth rate, successful engagements with a number of the world's best-known media companies and brands, including Coke, Budweiser, Sony Music, Vans, Chelsea FC, Yahoo, Indie Sports, CBS Sports, currently CEO of Blue Jay Strategies, providing strategy and connectivity to media and tech companies. Public speaker with appearances at South by Southwest, Web Summit, Kellogg School of Management, San Francisco Music and Tech, University of Illinois, Illinois State University, This Week in Startups, Startup Grind, Pando, Fast Company, and many others. A representative of World Business Chicago, Board of Trustee of Columbia College Chicago. This is Jimmy Chamberlain. Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Wow, that's a long intro.
People need to know you do more than just drum, though. You do a lot.
Really been enjoying the talk. Some great points. So I'm just going to do my thing.
Go for it. I'm clapping for everybody around the world.
Yeah. Woo-hoo. Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy.
I'll see you guys soon, okay?
Thank you so much.
Okay, be safe.
Mott, amazing.
Yeah, dude. I mean, if that guy ever wants to start a band, I'm in.
I'll figure out a way to sing. Actually, I play the upright bass. People do know that.
Nice. Nice. All right, we've allowed talking to you. Yeah, that was unbelievable. That was unbelievable. And tonight's been so much fun, Sadia.
Yeah. I mean, to have you as a CCA advisor, to have Jimmy Chamberlain, as you know, is important to read his bio, because as an entrepreneur and a musician, it really helps individuals understand that there are various ways, right, to attack this creative business, this creative economy, and we hope that we have shined a light on some of what's possible.
Totally. Well, and also entrepreneurship means so many things. Back in the old days, people just thought it meant starting a business, but entrepreneurship just means being a protagonist in the world and putting stuff together and making stuff happen. And as you guys can see, the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship empowers all kinds of creatives, from arts creatives to business creatives, with resources, knowledge, skills, relationships, everything that's necessary for business success. And if you guys have appreciated tonight as much as I have, please consider making a donation. In fact, make it a creative donation. They were asking for, I think a suggested amount of $50 if you can afford it for signing on tonight. But I think you should make it a donation of $53.87 or $289.64. Let's see how creative you can get. 10% of your proceeds go to artist relief, and the donations can be made at givecce.com. So that's giving to the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, givecce.com. No amount is too small and no amount is too big.
You know what? I have to say, it was a little tricky coming into tonight because there's just been so many nights back to back with incredible thought leaders, with incredible creative entrepreneurs. In fact, let's share some of the comments of tonight's viewers. We have Miss Sharon Morgan. Wow, what a truly informative show. Thank you to Breon, Mott, Kevin, and Oliver for their passion and dedication to the restaurant owners, service workers in the age of COVID. Oh gosh, who else do we have? Oh, look, I think it's my mommy. I'm so impressed with the passion of all of your guests with regard to the importance of this information, the essential of food, the knowledge of how our food is delivered. Oh, and then I think, Miss Morgan is just like, give the drummer some. Lori Crosley, just excited. Thank you all so much for taking time out to join us and be a part of this valued conversation. We encourage you to share it. It lives and will be archived on our Center for Creative Entrepreneurship YouTube page, where we archive all of our workshops and our CCE Global Industry Talks. If you know someone in the creative industries of some kind, share this information with them, because it is our hope and it is our mission to be able to provide these resources for sustainable business success within the creative sector. I'm Sadia Davis, the Director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. Tomorrow is our 9th and final night of this Empower, Educate, Create 9 Days of Giving Stream-a-Thon. Join us tomorrow for film. Now, that requires you to get a ticket. So I recommend going to our website, logging on, and getting your ticket. And you know what? Get a ticket for someone you know. Make it a gift. Make it a gift for a creative in your life. We'll be talking to Alex Picios, owner of CineSpace, Bob Title, producer who makes movies at CineSpace. We'll be talking to Rob Tovar, the owner of The Hangar. And we got permission from Showtime to speak with the producer of Working Progress, JJ Ingram. So join us tomorrow as we end with film. Have a good night, everyone.